She sells seashells by the seashore. The shells she sells are surely seashells. So if she sells shells on the seashore, I'm sure she sells seashore shells. Let's try that faster, I guess. She sells seashells by the seashore. The shells she sells are surely she shells. So if she sells so if she sells shells on the seashore, I'm sure she sells seashore shells. It's a tongue twister, right? I can feel my tongue doing all sorts of crazy stuff. She sells seashells by the seashore. The shells she sells are surely seashells. So if she sells shells on the seashore, I'm sure she sells seashore shells. It's even hard to do slow, I think. She sells seashells by the seashore. The shells she sells are surely seashells. So if she sells shells on the seashore, I'm sure she sells seashore shells. It's hard because my tongue wants to go back to the sh every time when it's supposed to be the eh. It's interesting. I was teaching English as a second language for a long time, and every now and then we would do tongue twisters. And I did this once, or I had students do this particular tongue twister once before, and I realized it's poetry. It's poetry, and I'll explain why it's poetry and why it's actually really, really good poetry. Maybe not in terms of meaning. The meaning's terrible. There's no real metaphorical wow moment here, but structurally it's great poetry. Now I tried to do some research, and this is one of those apocryphal things that exists out there in the world. The AI chatbot, Wikipedia, they all told me essentially the same thing. They're all getting it from one source, I guess. What it says is the phrase "she sells seashells by the seashore" is based on the life of Mary Anning, a fossil collector and paleontologist from the early 19th century. The line was later adapted into a song called "She Sells Seashells" by Terry Sullivan, which was released in 1908. The song was part of a musical comedy called The Gay Gordons and became popular as a tongue twister and nursery rhyme. Yeah. I think I missed a few. So she sells shells. I missed a few words here. Okay. It's interesting though, right? I mean, why is it apocryphal? Because this sounds like it's just some kind of made up story. I mean, what does a fossil collector have to do with seashells? I guess if we're thinking about the time, the early 19th century, the early 1900s, it was probably a disparaging or derogatory thing to say about Mary Anning, right? Because a woman doing something considered men's work at the time would have been made fun of in a way. Instead of saying she's out there searching for dinosaur bones, she's just collecting seashells. That's all she's capable of on the beach. I'm totally interpreting that myself. That's not probably correct, but that's how I see it, because I'm trying to see how a fossil collector is connected to seashells. I mean, I guess seashells are technically fossils. I mean, is that what she's collecting? Just simple seashells? Seashells? This video is going to be a workout for my tongue. Alright. Well, let's get back to this painting. I think this is from the Library of Congress. That's also what my source on the internet said. And I guess this is a painting of Mary Anning. And she's got her little hammer and basket to collect seashell on the seashore. And a nice puppy. So why is this poetry? Well, first of all, why did I think it was poetry? Because when you teach poetry to students, you have to teach them about rhythm and about the sound of the words. And that's one of the hardest things to do to teach students. They just assume that everything to do with poetry is about rhyming, and there's not really any rhymes here, because shore and shore are the same word, and shell are the same word. What's going on here is consonants and assonance. I hope I'm saying those correctly. But consonants is the repetition of consonant sounds, right? The letters B, C, D, K, J, L, sh. All of these hard sounds that require your mouth to open and close, as opposed to vowel sounds, which is just the assonance, the sounds of vowels, and how your mouth doesn't have to necessarily close, and it's always open to make the ah, oh, eh, ooh sound. You don't close your mouth. That's the assonance. And in this particular poem, there is a repetition of the e and the eh for the assonance, right? She sells sea shells. By, that's a different sound, but it's just a repetition of that over and over. And then we have the consonants, which is just the repetition of the sh sound and the s sound. S, s, s. You don't close your mouth with the s, but it's an aspirated kind of sound. So you're putting pressure behind, a forced pressure behind the air coming out of your mouth. This is so dumb to talk about. She sells seashells by the seashore. See how it just kind of repeats that sound over and over again? And when you teach poetry, you also try to teach that a good poet is going to take the time to represent what it is they're writing about in the words with the use of rhythm and sound. Okay, the rhythm and the sound. I'm talking about the sound now, the assonance and the consonants, that repetition of sh, s, sh, s. Do you see where I'm going with this? Sh, s, sh, s. It's the sound of the sea, right? It's the sound of the ocean crashing into the beach, right? Again and again, it's that rhythm of the waves. It's the rhythm of the waves. It's represented in the sounds used in this poem. And then the E, I don't know exactly what that might evoke, but she sells seashells by the seashore. I don't know. It's all evocative of the sound of sitting on the beach and watching the waves come in. And so that is why the sound use and the choice of words and vowel sounds and consonant sounds by whoever wrote this is actually quite clever. And then from there, the rhythm also, it's not an uncommon rhythm, it's just iambic meter. Well, iambic stress. The meter is she sells seashells by the seashore. I think that's 8, so it would be tetrameter, maybe. Maybe 4, I think. The seashells are surely seashells. It's not exact. And so if she sells shells on the seashore. Well, that's 9 too. I'm sure she sells seashore shells. That's it. Yeah. The meter's a bit random. It's close from line to line, but it's the iambic sound, that the iambic stress on the meter that gives us that into the beach, out to sea, the waves. It gives us that constant wave sound. And iambic stress, the stress is on the second syllable in the I am, she sells. Your mouth has to stress to get cells out. This is soft. She sells. Seashells by the seashore, right? It's that, I guess, downbeat, upbeat, downbeat. In music, the stress is on the downbeat, right? So the stress is on cells. She sells seashells by the seashore, something like that. The shells she sells are surely seashells. See how my mouth is forced to stress that second syllable each time? That is iambic, the iambs. Yeah, so that all evokes and creates a sense of the water crashing into the shore. And that's why it's good poetry in terms of the structure and the physicality that it creates when you recite it out loud. And it's interesting that it became a tongue twister, because I think it should be recited slowly to get the full effect of the sound of the waves. And to do it quickly, that's not really what happens in the ocean, right? She sells seashells by the seashore. The shells she sells are surely she sells. So if she sells shells on the seashore, I'm sure she sells seashore shells. It doesn't have the same timbre or connection to what the words are about. That's why I think this is poetry. But again, the meaning, it's pretty literal. There's no metaphorical thing going on here. I mean, we can try. We can try to put some metaphorical spin on this. You try. Okay, do that in the comments. Thanks. Bye.